Good morning again to you all out here in the social media world. This is Jcru2u, bringing you my second video here early morning here on October 2nd, 2023. And I want to bring you a video and give you my thoughts on something that was eventually going to happen, but something that may be a bit of a shocking relief to some people, but for folks like myself, it was something that's not shocking, and it was an eventuality that was going to take place. It shows us that stupidity has no bounds, basically, in terms of this happening. And what I'm referring to is the recent arrest of a guy who is under suspicion for being involved with the murder of the legendary rapper Tupac Shakur 27 years ago in September 1996 back in Las Vegas, Nevada. Quick synopsis for maybe the two people in the world who've never heard of Tupac. He was a rapper who came to prominence in the early and mid '90s, and Tupac basically went from a guy who was an unknown guy, like in the city of in New York City and Baltimore, to being one of the best rappers we've ever heard. By the time he passed away due to a shooting that took place in Las Vegas, Nevada, in September 1996. Tupac transitioned from being a New York rapper to a West Coast rapper in 1995 and 1996, when he went from being New York based to being based off in Los Angeles, California, out there on Death Row Records, up under the unfortunate tutelage and guidance of one Mary and Suge Knight, who was the label's record label CEO. With Suge Knight, one of his follies was that he was known to uh, probably invite the presence of gang members around his label, uh, to the respect of some, but to the chagrin of others. And within this atmosphere, Tupac had to coexist to not only continue his career, but to probably, keep himself or insulate himself from the trouble that the streets could really bring to you. Because if you follow Tupac in New York, he was always a guy who affiliated himself with street people, whether it was that guy Haitian Jack Agnate that he rapped about, and that guy Jimmy Henchman, and even the guys who were members of the Live Squad. The dude Stretch he always talked about, but who was based out in Queens, New York. He's always had affiliation with street people, and that was ultimately part of the downfall of Tupac, because he was only 25 when he passed away. And as we all know, Tupac and his entourage uh, engaged in a fight with a guy by the name of Orlando Anderson at the MGM Casino over there in Las Vegas in September 1996. Pop was rolling around with some Bloods who was affiliated with Suge Knight and his record label, Death Row Records. And they saw a Crip, a Southside Compton Crip by the name of Orlando Anderson. And I think they already had some street beef going on with him. I mean, there's a lot more that's entailed in that one little statement, so I'll let you go look that up. Because I'm trying to keep this video a little bit shorter and sweeter. But either way, after they jumped on Orlando Anderson, they beat him up, kicked him. We know with Pop being part of the entourage that beat him up, kicked him, as well as Suge Knight. Hours later, allegedly, Orlando Anderson, along with three other people, got to a BMW, got to I believe it was a Cadillac or BMW, it was one of them. And they eventually found Pop hanging out, rolling around like in the streets of Vegas. They pulled up to the side of Pop, who was in the passenger seat of a BMW, along with Mary and Suge Knight, who was driving. And they just basically just opened up on him, like with a barrage of shots. And it later killed Tupac a week later after he expired. You know, what's been crazy in this 27 years of uncertainty and waiting for somebody to be brought to justice was that several things happened. Um, this gentleman that you see in this video, whose picture that you see to the right of this vid pic, his name is Duane Keefe D Davis. He was the uncle of one Orlando Anderson who got jumped on in Vegas. If you follow this story at all, you know that in 1998, Keefe D's nephew, Orlando Anderson, the guy that got jumped on at the MGM Casino over there in Vegas, he was killed like in the shooting. And some people, I guess in the streets who had been aware that Orlando Anderson was on suspicion of that had felt like that was related to Tupac. Oh, somebody got Orlando Anderson back. But according to Keefe D and the police officers in all these years in between since that tragedy has taken place, that wasn't necessarily the reason that Orlando Anderson died. And we found out that we probably would have never known this in terms of any of this stuff if it were not for Duane Keefe D Davis. What happened was that Keefe D, after Orlando Anderson left Las Vegas after shooting along with Keefe D and two other guys that I'm gonna mention here shortly. Keefe D, even after Orlando's death, began to continue to participate in street level activity. He reportedly became involved like in the dope ring, and he eventually got caught up. I don't know if it was cocaine or ecstasy ring that he participated in, but he got caught up with law enforcement, and he was offered options, as we all know, because he was looking at a potential life sentence. Excuse me, I'm sneezing. But either way, as we all know, some people can do two or three things as options. They can either one, kind of take it to trial and face a possible conviction without saying anything, or they can cooperate and sort of give up the goods on themselves with this particular case they're facing, or they can also talk about other cases that they may have had something to do with that could get them out of their current case they're facing. They can just, snitch, give up information. Keefe D, around, I think it was 2004 to 2006, sat down with two investigators, one being this guy by the name of Greg Kading, who was now retired, who was a Los Angeles police detective, who was investigating Keefe D. And I think he was a guy that had been reassigned to investigating Tupac's murder in Las Vegas at some point as well. Either way, when Keefe D got caught up in this dope case, I believe Kading and another gentleman sat down in Keefe D's garage, I believe, at his house at the time, and they asked him about any other case that he wanted to give information on. And again, this is in the mid 2000s. And Keefe D agreed to say, yeah, man, I was in the car with a group of people that was responsible for killing Tupac. And this was recorded. And this recording has been since made public, like over the past decade. And so people have gotten to see it, or gotten to hear it rather. Basically, what Keefe D said is after Orlando Anderson got jumped on, Orlando Anderson came, he kind of came back and linked back up with a group of friends of his, one being Duane Keefe D Davis, his uncle, another guy by the name of DeAndre Smith, who was another Compton City, Southside Compton crew, and another guy by the name of Terrence Brown. And he said what they did is they rode around looking for Tupac, trying to get back at him for jumping on his nephew. They eventually found him, and he said that Orlando Anderson was the one that pulled the trigger on Tupac. He was the one that shot him and killed him for jumping on him. And they was all in the car riding around looking for him. And Orlando Anderson, basically, opened up on him and shot him and killed him. His pop was just kind of riding around with Suge Knight. So and what has been very strange since Keefe D has given his statement, was that Keefe D was apparently, what he did was when he gave his statement, he engaged in what's known as a proffer agreement, meaning you could give up statements on one case in hopes to get out of another case and not get prosecuted for what you said, because you're cooperating. So he was in hopes that he could stay out of prison and not get convicted for that drug ring that he was a part of. And I think at the time it worked. He didn't get prosecuted for it because he gave information on the murder of Tupac Shakur. But what Keefe D has been doing in particularly over the past 4 to 5 years is something that's very common that we see. Like, especially with guys who have probably lived a lifestyle like in which they've been in the streets, in which they've done like a quote unquote a bunch of legendary things. He's engaged in something called clout chasing there. It's a term that young people use. I don't use that in particular. I'm a young guy, but not young. I'm not a teenager. But a lot of young people call it clout chasing, meaning that you're trying to pursue some respect or fame because of your dealings in a former life, or hell, even a current life of being a street figure. He wanted to be known as a legendary guy. I used to be a gangster. I used to be tough. And so for anybody who's had a brain and who's had eyes, if you know what YouTube is and you know what Google is, you see Keefe D over the past 4 or 5 years talking about the fact that he was in the car with a group of people riding around looking for Tupac, and they eventually killed him. He's literally been doing interviews about this. Well, it's been on DJ Vlad's YouTube channel, some other YouTube channel. I think he did a BET special. He talked about it again. When I say BET special, the Black Entertainment TV special, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, which they were covering Tupac's murder. He admitted to it again. I was in the car, man, and the thing about it is the big difference that he hasn't necessarily said it was his nephew that did it over the past 4 or 5 years. He just said, man, I'm gonna keep the code of the streets alive. Yeah, I was in that car, but the shots came from the back of the car. You still telling on what happened. You still telling that you were with the group of people that did that. So you still ain't keeping the streets. You ain't keeping the hood. What Keefe D has done showed me that dumbness has no bounds, and that I made the right choice myself as a young man. But if you hear guys that talk like that they want to be some kind of OG, they want to be some kind of known street figure, you should want to stay the heck away from them. Because they'll do anything for that kind of respect and that kind of notoriety in this day and age where you can make money doing interviews. And I'm not just gonna confine this to guys like Keefe D. If you've been on YouTube or social media, you see guys, you see a lot of these Italian gangsters, they get on there doing interviews like Michael Francis, John A. Light, other guys who done gangster stuff, and they'll talk about their exploits in the streets, which is just plain stupid if you ask me. It don't make any kind of sense, because like I said, Keefe D was on the impression that, oh yeah, I had a proper agreement. I couldn't get arrested for that. Well, we just saw this past weekend that's not necessarily the truth. As you see with the title of the article, on Friday or Saturday, Keefe D was arrested over there in Nevada. And let me say this, he had a house in Henderson, Nevada with his wife that is just south of Las Vegas, Nevada. So he wasn't living too far away from where that murder happened. He was living in a city that's south of Las Vegas. So you close to where that action took place. And as I said in this video, it's taking 27 years. The people were like, when this news was announced, what's taking Las Vegas PD so long to arrest Keefe D? Well, not only he's been saying this for the past 4 or 5 years, but they've had all these statements and all these evidence compiled with guys like the retired LA police detective Greg Kading. What's taking them so long? And again, I may be not correct in how I'm saying this. So you may want to double check me. Apparently, part of the reason this is taking so long is that they want to find a smoking gun other than what he just said. They want to find some kind of evidence. They raided his house, and I think they took his computers and other photographs and some other evidence, and they've been reported able to connect him to it with solid evidence. What that evidence is, we don't know exactly what that is, but apparently, mainly, a lot of the evidence deal with what Keefe D said on social media. So I just want young people who are out in the world to know this. All that clout chasing, all this, I used to be a gangster, I used to be so tough. Look at what's happening with Keefe D and understand where your butt could end up at. Just understand where you can end up at was in a place that you never intended to be at, which is probably gonna be in the prison for the rest of his life. Because I think he's 60 now. And let me throw this in there. Keefe D's getting older. And reportedly all them guys that was in the car with him, they're dead now. Of course, Orlando Anderson, he got killed 2 years after that, after he reportedly shot and killed Tupac, according to Keefe D, like in the drug deal that went bad in Compton. Orlando Anderson was shot and killed. The other guy, Terrence Brown, I think was a part of some robbery attempt at some marijuana dispensary in LA. He was killed. And I believe DeAndre Smith, who was kind of overweight, who dealt with various health issues, he died of health related reasons. The streets did what the streets do, and karma did what karma does. They take care of business with stuff like this. This stuff always come back on you in one form or another. So, and also Keefe D himself, I believe, reportedly has had cancer over the past 10 years. He may have gotten over it now, but I think I heard, somebody say that with him. I don't know if it's Greg Kading, but somebody said he had cancer who's associated with him. So that maybe he was trying to get all this stuff off his chest too. So that may have played a factor. And so we're gonna see where this case goes, because it just showed me the stupidity about Duane Keefe D Davis. Instead, also let me throw this in here. He wrote a book, which is probably gonna be something else he used against him. Where he talked about how they killed Tupac. I think it was released maybe 3-4 years ago, in which he deemed himself a Compton City street legend. That maybe is what the name of the book was. But again, he's putting something out there that shouldn't be out there in this world. If I participated in something like that, you would never hear me repeat that to anyone. No one. Not a wife, a child, sister, brother. So some stuff you don't repeat. And he just showing you that in his pursuit of chasing street legend status and trying to get social media money, he's found himself in a predicament that he probably is not going to get out of. So I hope Keefe D gets what's coming to him, which is a conviction and a life sentence for this. Rest in peace to Tupac Shakur, one of the greatest rappers and the greatest rapper that ever existed in my mind. Looks like we're finally going to at least get the ball rolling on getting idiots like Keefe D off streets who want to sit up here and brag on YouTube and other platforms and through books about how they did nothing but cause destruction in black communities and take away one of the greatest talents we've ever seen in the music industry. It's your guy, Jcru2u, signing off here on October 2nd, 2023, my second video early morning. Y'all be good out there, man. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Thank you.